Hi, I'm Sharang Biswas. I'm talking about something not related to what we're talking about at all, but yay! I'm going to talk about role-playing romance, or as I like to subtitle it, gay sex and games. A little bit about me. I make all kinds of weird stuff. I make a lot of interactive and immersive theater that you cannot experience again, sucks to be you. I make a lot of other kinds of games as well that you can experience. You can check them out on my website. My website's there. Photograph that. I'm cool. I also write a lot about games and for games and with games and to do with games. Some of that's online, you can check that out. But this talk is not about me, this talk is about role-playing romance. And why do we want to role-play romance? So Lizzie Stark, who's a famous LARP designer, has this very interesting essay, and she talks about this idea that a lot of games, even in the indie circles, are about conquest and killing and violence. And that is not to say that conquest and killing and violence are not important parts of the Anthropocene. I believe it kind of defines most of human history until recently, but it's to say that yes, that is one aspect of what it has meant to be human, but hopefully it will not continue to be so, and there are a lot of other aspects that make us human, and why do we not express this in one of the most up-and-coming emergent media? So let's make games about romance and gay sex. And I'm focusing on this gay part because, and by gay I mean queer, apologies, queer sex. I'm gay, so I just tend to say gay, but anyway. And I focus on that exactly because of the reason that was articulated before, and that people like being represented. Not just like, people need to be represented in order to feel validated, in order to feel like you are actually part of this world and you deserve to actually live. So, yes, games about queer people are good, and make more of them, and we're going to talk a little bit about how. Now, of course, there are a lot of games that have sexuality involved in it, including queer sexuality. Here we have everyone's favorite dating simulator with dragons and dating simulator with aliens. But the thing about these games is, yes, they involve elements of romance and relationships and sex and dating, but these aren't games about them. Ultimately, these again are games about killing things and conquest and etc., etc., etc. Yes, they're about justice and nobility and all that, but their brand of justice is by killing things and conquest, right? And even when you do play digital games that involve sexuality in a more important way, like Dream Daddy is a game about finding a daddy to date and then having a daughter. You already have the daughter, you don't have the daughter with the daddy. But the problem is, in the current state of technology that most of these games use, the romance that you have tends to become very transactional. I can look at a guide online and say, if I say these exact things, if I give Alistair enough kittens, for those of you who've played Dragon Age, they will like me and they will sleep with me, unless you're a dude, in which case Alistair won't, which made me really sad. But anyway, so there's this weird relationship, like I will give you these things in this game step by step, and then you will give me sex. Which, if you are cynical, perpetuates one of the most toxic ideas of toxic masculinity, which is, I will do things for you, and then you must give me sex. This is the contract we have. I'm not that cynical, and I still play these games. But some games don't do that. So Robert Yang, in this really epic essay, talks about this idea of, we tend to examine, when we look at games, the stories and characters for their politics, and we don't examine as much the other parts of the game, like the underlying code of a digital game, or the mechanics of any sort of game. And so his games often do that. So this is Hurt Me Plenty, which is a little short, really cool game about BDSM spanking, and you can actually play it with a leap motion and like spank. It's awesome, right? And in this game, you're like spanking someone who really wants to be spanked, but if they give you their safe word, and if they say, nope, please stop, you're hurting me, you're doing it too much, you can actually keep spanking them, and if you do so, the game will lock you out of playing it. Physically, the game will not, when you try and sign into the game again, it'll be like, nope, you cannot play, you like went over someone's limits. And this is not a bug, this is what he wanted. So here, Robert Yang uses the mechanics of the game to discuss something about sexuality and about boundaries and things. But I would still argue that digital games at the current state of technology are still bounded in this algorithmic cage where we are bound by what the designers or what the coders put into the game. You don't have enough freedom to explore the full range of human sexuality. Not that you necessarily should, but sometimes you might want to, which is where I think analog games, role-playing games, board games, card games, tabletop RPGs, LARP, which is live-action role-playing, allow you, have the affordances of allowing you to explore all kinds of human interactions because literally they're limited by your body and your imagination. So I'm going to talk about a couple of ways analog games introduce sexuality and romance elements into the game that are interesting and meaningful, and not just about here is a relationship in the storyline, but the game has nothing to do with that, which is fine sometimes, but not what I'm talking about. So here are two games. The first one is Consentical by Naomi Clark, which some of you may know. The Kickstarter ended recently. It is amazing. It is a two-person game where one of you is a tentacle alien and one of you is an astronaut and you are having sex. It is a cooperative game. And the reason I have this game up here is that I want to talk about how game mechanics can either be metaphors for acts of sexuality or can extend upon acts that you do while engaging in sexy things. So in Consentical, it's a cooperative game. You're working together to maximize satisfaction, which I think models real life very much. Most of the time, good sex is a cooperative game, and you are trying to maximize satisfaction. Bad sex is different. We will not get into that. The other thing is, one of the main mechanics of this game is that your not opponent, your partner, draws a hand of cards that you cannot see, and you have to coordinate and communicate with each other to discover what do they want to do and how can you help them by doing something else or similar, which is again making this argument about what good sex should be like. Communication. So the game below is my latest entry for the 200 RPG contest. I'm going to expand it very soon once I find an illustrator. And this is a game about horny teenage demigods. And the main mechanic of the game is taking your clothes off. And in this game, I try, hopefully successfully, I've playtested it like 3 times, that I'm trying to make the act of stripping both a metaphor for the vulnerability of sex and the intimacy and eroticism of sex. So, point is that here you can use mechanics to be metaphors for sexuality or to extend upon sexy things like communicating with your partner. So sexy. Now speaking of mechanics, the next point is that if you want people to engage with romance and sexuality in your games, the simplest way to do it is make mechanics about romance and sexuality incredibly explicit. So Monster Hearts 2 is a tabletop role-playing game by Avery Alder, which is inspired by the novels Twilight and the rest, where you play high school monsters and angsting the entire game. You just angst the whole time. It's wonderful. And when you get your character sheet, every character sheet has one move called Turn Someone On, which allows you to turn someone on, anyone in the game, regardless of gender, and that is explicitly stated. And every character has a sex move, which is a supernatural thing that happens when you have sex. Now, if I'm playing a game and someone's like, here is a character sheet, and I see the word sex move, I am going to use the sex move at some point in the game. And I'm like, oh, I think I'll ignore this part of my character sheet. No, right? So, quick illustration of the fact that if you want people to do something in your game, in this case, sexuality, make it explicit and available for the characters to use because people want to use the tools that the game gives them. And finally, I'm going to talk about a live-action role-playing game called Just a Little Loving that I played last year. It's by T.K. Edlund and Hanne Grassman. Apologies, Hanne. It is a Swedish, Danish, Scandinavian name. And it is a game which is played over 5 days in a campground, and you are playing queer people in the 80s, most of you dying of AIDS. It is a very depressing and very awesome and empowering and wonderful game. If it comes to the US again, you should all play it. So they do 2 things I want to highlight. One, it does this embodying thing again, where the game is a lot about sexuality, right? It is about the AIDS epidemic and how sexuality interacted with that. And in order to have sex in game, so we were told, by the way, at the start of the game that we are not allowed to actually have sex during the course of the game. You can only use the mechanics and use metaphors for sex. And the way you do that is the campground is strewn with bright pink dildos. And you grab them and you literally mime sex acts with someone else using the bright pink dildo. And there's a big negotiation thing going on, so I remember someone was like, can I kiss you? I'm like, yes, you may kiss me. Please kiss me, you're hot. But you actually, so like you mime using the dildo. And that does a big thing of making you feel like you're actually embodying the sex act, and it has unexpected moments like, oh, you actually have to put a condom onto the dildo if you want to use a condom. And that makes you think about, oh, this is a very explicit choice that I'm making. It can also teach you things like, wow, giving a blowjob for a long time will hurt your jaw, which some straight people didn't know. So I'm like, yes, the actual acts of doing things can teach you and make you more fully immersed in this world. Another mechanic they used was, because people who played the game aren't as adept at cruising as gay men in underground clubs in the 80s, if you want to pick someone up in game, you gave them a pink feather to symbolize the act of, I am showing desire. This is an exchange of communication and power. And you do that. The other thing this game did well is set up a context for us to play. So obviously they told us this is a game about AIDS and sex and death and desire and friendship. So we're like, okay, this is what we're gonna play. But every morning we had a period of game off where we sat and did workshops about those themes. So on the first day the theme was desire. We read pieces of How to Survive a Plague. We had a lecture from an expert talking about the AIDS epidemic. We did theater games to get us in the mood of like desire. And we did similar things every night for all the other themes. So setting up a context and giving players knowledge and tools they can use to play the game can be very powerful. So, summary, I'm not even going to bother repeating the fact that we need games with sexuality and romance in it as key concepts, because that is the point of my talk. How do we do this? There are many ways. I've outlined some of them. First, tell your players, hey, this is a game about romance. Do that, please. And if they actually want to have fun with the game, they will do that. Use mechanics in a clever way. Mechanics can be metaphors. Mechanics can extend or model certain things you want, like relationship, sexuality, communication, blowjobs. Make it available. If you give players pink feathers and say, you can use this to pick someone up, they will use the pink feathers, if only to like empty their pockets, right? If you give them a character power about sexuality, they will want to use it because everyone wants to use their character powers. And then finally, set up a context. In LARPs is easy because you can actually decorate the room and make it feel like that. But also setting up like workshops and discussions and things before games is not done enough outside of the live action roleplay context. And I think it's a very powerful way of getting people into your games and message. That was me, that was Gay Sex and Games, otherwise known as Roleplaying Romance. Thank you, follow me, tweet at me, all that stuff.